evening and welcome to the Town of Riverhead Planning Board. Today is December 1st, 2022. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So on this evening's agenda, we have two public hearings, and we also have Zoom available. If anyone on Zoom would like the opportunity to speak when it becomes time, if you could raise your hand so that we're able to unmute you, that would be appreciated. So just raise your hand. Let's start this evening with Holly Tree Lane Minor Subdivision with Greg Bergman.
All right, good evening, members of the board. My name is Greg Bergman with the Riverhead Planning Department. This is a public hearing on a 4-lot minor residential subdivision known as the Holly Tree Lane Minor Subdivision application. It's actually comprised of 3 individual parcels in Jamesport, having a total lot area of 12.96 acres. The subdivision proposes a clustered subdivision, which will create 4 new single-family residential building lots, as well as the creation of an 8.55 acre conservation area, which will be limited to agricultural uses. The property is served by public water. It is within the Riverhead Water District. The conservation area does have a 1 acre building envelope for agricultural structures. The subdivision will be accessed by 2 roadways, one being Seaman Road, which is a 25-foot wide private right-of-way. It's located on the western side of the subdivision. That 25-foot wide right-of-way would serve as the access to the agricultural reserve parcel on the north end of the property. And Holly Tree Lane, which is a town road, is a 50-foot wide right-of-way located near the center of the property. That would serve as access to the 4 proposed lots. The application did require relief from the Riverhead Zoning Board of Appeals for the creation of the 8.55 acre conservation area, where the town code requires 10 acre minimum. And the applicant has been working with the health department. They do have a pending application for approval, and we've been getting comments back and forth. We do have the applicant's representative, Vincent Calvosa, here to answer any questions that the board or the public may have.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. Vince Calvosa here with Red's Adventure. Our address is 250 David Court in Calverton. To enter into the record, please, I'd like to submit copies of the notice of mailing and return receipts, as well as photos of the signs. As Mr. Bergman had indicated, we're here tonight to seek the final approval of the subdivision of this parcel. We have been working with the planning department and the engineering departments and the health department to move this application along and to develop the plan in front of you this evening. It is worthy of noting that the town board has approved the water main extension that was part of this application. The town board heard that application on November 1st and approved the extension of the water main that's necessary at our expense, of course. Given the facts and the circumstances that we've just discussed, I'd request that the board consider this application approval this evening.
Okay. The open space area that you provided, is that actively farmed now?
It has been farmed for many years, but is currently not being farmed right now. As of the date we took title to the property, they removed all of their plantings.
The access road for Seaman Road, when you first presented, I had mentioned about the maintenance of that road. Right now, it is currently maintained by a few residents of that street. There's going to be a lot of traffic probably picking up on that road now, with, I believe that you plan on putting a structure on that part of the farmland.
There is no plan for a structure. We just designated the 1 acre of area that we would put a structure if one day, that was part of the application, just to designate an area. There is no plans to build a structure at any point in time right now. The plans for the property are to expand upon an existing vineyard in Jamesport. The Goodale family, who owns Terra Vitae on Manor Lane, is going to be bringing some vines onto this parcel to just expand their vineyard. Not a tasting room, not a winery, just grapes.
Okay, but that does not address the issue with the maintenance on the private.
So the owners have approached me on Seaman Road and have said that they've been maintaining it over time and they would like to keep maintaining it. They get together themselves and I guess they gather up gravel and machines. And they asked if they can continue to maintain it. That was the request I had gotten. And of course I
With no
haven't.
contribution from,
I think what they're doing right now is just grading out some gravel. I drove up the road today, and there's a number of potholes and whatnot. I think they do it once a year. We don't expect that there's going to be a lot of traffic running up and down that road, Seaman Road.
Except during construction.
There is no construction happening on that side.
Okay.
The construction is going to take place off of Holly Tree. Holly Tree is actually a private-owned road. We own the road, but it was taken into the highway system. As a 189. So we own the road. The town maintains the road, does not own it.
Because I noticed it was only a 50-foot rather than a 55 to be a town road.
Yes, the Schmidt family had created it that way, and I think back in the 2000s, or 2016, I believe it was, that the town adopted it into its maintenance system, but not ownership.
Where do you stand with the health department?
So we have submitted an application to the Health Department for subdivision. We have addressed all of their issues, and they are ready to issue an approval pending this approval as well. There are no outstanding issues. The only outstanding issue we have at the moment is with the engineering department. We did a SWIP report, and as part of that SWIP report, they had asked us to do a review with the state with regards to historical resources, and we're in the process of providing that information to them now.
I noticed that on the drawing that I have, you showed the wastewater systems, but you also have a little box for IA, but you don't show IA on the lots.
At this point in time, it's a requirement of the health department. Every new construction in
That's
Suffolk
why I
County.
asked you why the health department.
Yes, so every
You
one
have
of those
to
four
show.
houses is going to have an IA system, yes. And served by Riverhead Public Water. No wells.
okay. Anybody else have any questions? All right. At this time, thank you very much. At this time, we will take anyone from the audience that would like to come up. We'll do that first, and then we'll switch over to Zoom. Is there anyone here for this public hearing? Okay, how about Zoom?
No one's raising their hand. Oh, the other's down there.
Tell them down the other side.
Hello, I am John Bauer at 27 Holly Tree Lane, which is the last existing house, so this new property will be against my property. Just want to make a request that the woods that remain there be
We
kept
can't
as
hear.
fully wooded as possible. I know they're going to be putting houses
I'm
there.
sorry,
They're
we
gonna have to
can't-
take
we can't
out almost
hear
all
you
the
right now.
trees, but I would request that there be some kind of buffer between our house and the development. Thank you.
We're having technical difficulties possibly, so if you could bear with us for 1 minute so we can check on that. This happens every time. you try speaking again to see if we can hear you, please? Hello?
Hello?
Hi. Can you try again for us so that we can see if we can hear you properly?
Okay, hi, I am John Bauer from 27 Holly Tree Lane, which is the last existing structure on that side of the street, and the woods next to me are what's going to make up the proposed subdivision. I would request that as much as possible to leave as much woods as possible between my house and the new development, so we can have a little bit of privacy left after this is built. Thank you.
Okay, I know that they will be able to address that for you. Did you understand what he asked?
I was able to hear it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, as part of the plan that's in front of you this evening, you'll see that there have been areas that have been designated as buffers where trees will remain. And if I'm understanding the gentleman correctly, he's on the west side of the road. If he's the last house on the west side, we do have a 25-foot tree line buffer that we're going to keep in place there.
Okay, it said not necessarily guaranteed or something, so I just wanted to know what that really meant.
The setbacks and the buffers have been made part of the plan. As part of the subdivision plan, we plan to adhere to every part of it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. If there's anyone else on Zoom, if you can raise your hand. Okay. Thank you very much.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for Holly Tree Lane for minor subdivision.
Vote, please. Bear?
Yes.
Nenaro? Dennisesky?
Aye.
Woski, yes. Okay,
Thank you.
can we move on to the next public hearing? Dries Specchio Manufacturers Outlet Center. Great.
Thank you again, Planning Board. This is a public hearing for a site plan application known as Dries Specchio Manufacturers Outlet Center. This is a site plan application which is seeking approval to construct 31,000 square feet of manufacturers outlet center retail space, as well as related site improvements, including parking, lighting, landscaping, and utility connections on a 4.15 acre parcel of land located between Tanger 1 and Tanger 2. The address of the property is 2009 Old Country Road in Riverhead. The property is located within the Business F zoning use district and is more particularly described as Suffolk County Tax Map number 600-118-3-7. In order to establish a manufacturer's outlet center use within the Business F zoning district, a special permit from the town board is required. This applicant did obtain that special permit from the town board by resolution number 22-600 dated August 16th, 2022. The site plan does, although it does front on Old Country Road, it has a small flag lot which fronts on Old Country Road. Access to the property and access to the site will be taken from Tanger Drive. That access from Tanger Drive is required pursuant to easements that were established during the build-out of Tanger 2. So there will be no access on Old Country Road. It'll be taken just from Tanger Drive. The applicant has obtained a New York State DEC permit because it is located within the Wild Scenic Recreational Rivers area. And again, we do have a representative from the applicant who's here to answer questions that the board may have or that the public may have.
Thank you, Greg. What's that, John?
Good evening, Board. My name is Arthur Rast. I represent Sandusky Architects, who's the architect for this project. Sandusky Architects.
Pick up the mic a little bit so we can hear you. That's good.
Is that better?
Thank you.
Much better.
So my name is Arthur Rast. I represent Sandusky Architects, who's the architect for this project. I would like to submit the certificate of mailings and the affidavit. So to just touch on what Mr. Bergman was saying, this was a previously approved application. Had gotten through all the approvals. Most of what's proposed now is essentially unchanged. There was a couple of updates that we had made per new regulations and, requirements. The old approval had expired due to economic reasons, this, that, and the other. This was an application that was back in like 2003. I think we had gotten approval around 2007. So it was a long time. Because of that,
Was it approved for?
for this
residential-
exact use,
For commercial use like this?
exactly. Yep. Virtually no change in terms of the footprint or anything associated with this project. Though because of the lapse in time, was considered essentially a new application, so we had to go through the whole process over again, go through, the whole scrutineering and whatnot. Tanger has already approved everything and given, approval for them to go ahead through with this, so there's no opposition from Tanger. And we're essentially just looking to get the same approval that we had gotten from years ago. If there's any questions, we're free to answer them for them.
I don't have any questions.
How many stores are you proposing?
Sorry, say again?
How many stores are you proposing? If there was a total build-out?
We have a total of 13 tenants that would be possibly planned, at the most, 13. Yes. Marty?
I just wanted to mention that the application is considered a completely new application. So there have been, as Arthur said, based on the changes of zoning, et cetera, we have massaged the site, so it's really a new site plan, but it does meet all the requirements and zoning.
Hey, Marty, this is a public hearing, so we're gonna need your name for the record.
I'm sorry, what was that?
It's a public hearing, so we have to have your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, Martin Senluski, from Senluski Architects, representing the owner.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to mention something, I think, I have a small version of what you're proposing,
I've
but
got the plans in front of me as well.
I
So.
look at the utilities being brought in, okay? And it looks like that the sewer line is gonna cross your water line at some point. So you should be aware that there's gonna have to be a separation. And that might
Correct.
affect,
Yeah, any kind
The
of
elevation.
crossings of utilities, of course, are going to have to be,
well, the water and sewer specifically,
Yes.
there's regulations.
of course.
But
That's
if
what,
you I think if you move the sewer line a little bit, or the water line, you won't have to do that.
well,
But take a look at it, you might save some construction.
I appreciate that input. The sewer line's kind of where it is. It's not like we can really move that per se.
No, your sewer connection,
One thing I would add to
sewer
that,
connection, not
I-
the
if I
sewer
could.
line, the connection.
The sewer line crosses from Tanger 1 to Tanger 2 across the easement, and as part of the easement agreement, this property has the right to tie into that existing sewer line. All of the other electric, water, and gas will come from 58 and will be shot under the cross easement to the property.
I see that, but if you look at the water line itself, it crosses the sewer line somewhere where you have that cross hatching.
Yes, I do see that. And
If you moved it further to the west, you wouldn't have to.
I appreciate that. And to your point, whenever we're designing anything or engineering any project, these are always things we have to consider and to make sure that we follow.
Okay.
So I can assure you that that will be held to the highest standard in terms of making sure that we.
Oh, I understand that, but you wouldn't have to do it. You wouldn't have to worry about the crossing if you move the water line a little bit away from that.
Okay,
And that would only have to do with the plumbing inside the building, obviously.
that's a good point. We'll definitely consider that.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone that would like to come up from the public?
Any other Zoomers, or?
No? All right.
Make a motion to close the Dry Specchio Manufacturers Outlet Center public hearing, so moved?
Second?
Vote, please. Bear?
Yes?
Nenaro?
Aye.
Nacesky?
Aye.
West, yes. Okay. Let's let's move on to our discussion items. First item on the agenda is 2 Cliff Road, Chapter 219, application with Heather Trojanowski.
For the record, Heather Trojanowski, site plan reviewer. And if you could just introduce yourself. Gina Rigdon, DKR Shores, here to represent the owner. And I think.
I'm sorry, who he was?
Here to represent, Gina Rigdon, DKR Shores, here to represent Rosemary McAndrew, and they should be here, hopefully in the audience too as well, if you have any questions for them. So the planning department has received and reviewed a Chapter 219 coastal erosion management permit application seeking to legalize existing decks located within the coastal erosion hazard area. The existing decks are 28 feet from the crest of the bluff. Under this application, they are not proposing any changes. They just want to legalize the decks in the location where they are. So the proposed action is a type 2 action pursuant to SECRA, as the existing decks are accessory to the single-family dwelling on the property. And the subject parcel, identified as Suffolk County Tax Number 600-27-1-31, is a 16,598 square foot parcel located at 2 Cliff Road in Wading River. It's within the RB80 zoning use district, and it's currently improved with the single-family residence, attached rear and side decks, and a detached garage. So if you look at the aerials and the figures in my staff report, there is wooden bulkheading along the toe of the bluff. That's actually a separate parcel. I'm not 100% sure who maintains it, but there is the bulkheading fronts on the toe of the bluff, and it goes to the east and west, and actually all the way back down to where the Holst Beach
And
entrance
it's
is.
not part of their property?
No, it's a separate tax map number. I
Really?
don't know if it's the Holst Landing Homeowners Association, because a lot of the properties in that area do have deeded beach rights. I live right up the road, and I think the Wildwood Acres Association also has deeded beach rights as well. So not 100% sure who maintains it or when exactly the bulkheading was constructed. But they did, the applicants and Agena did secure a letter of non-jurisdiction from the New York State DEC, because all of the construction, the existing construction at the top of the bluff, at the elevation is 90 feet, so no permits required to conduct regulated activities landward of the top of the bluff. Because the existing decks are not listed under Town Code Chapter 219, Section 14B, as a specifically permitted activity within the coastal erosion hazard area, they did have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals for relief. They also needed relief for the existing side yard setback. And at the November 10th meeting, 2022, Zoning Board of Appeals did grant the above, the mentioned relief by appeal number 2022-036 with no conditions. Go ahead.
The items that were constructed that were not approved of, are they under current construction standards? Do they meet all the standards of current construction?
That's what we're not
They
sure
do
about.
need a little bit of modification to make them safe, so they will need to meet with Andreas about.
Yeah, through the
how to-
building department.
To the building department specifically, and make sure that that is built up to code and or upgraded, so it is built to New York State residential
Okay.
code.
And I referred it to the town's consulting engineer. That way, if he has any comments or concerns, I made that a condition of the resolution I have on today. So if he notices any sort of safety concerns or engineering issues, those can be flushed out under the scope of the building permit. You know, if they need to make repairs, they would be in place in kind. They don't plan on changing the configuration of the deck, expanding the deck, or further encroaching into where the CHA line is. It's just a matter of legalizing everything. You know, this work was done by prior owners, and they just want to make sure everything is up to code and get the correct certificates for it.
Stay up to code.
Good.
When was this property acquired?
3 years ago? So they bought the property. 2019.
2019?
Yeah, I have a little bit of background because I was in the building department at that time. The prior owners, obviously, you know, through title searches, knew that things needed to be legalized on the property, so they had hired an expediter to try and start that process, realized that they needed Chapter 219 and corresponding zoning board of appeals relief, and the sale went through. I believe they had money put in escrow, and it's just, you know, their prior expediter never followed up on the paperwork. And, you know, it's fallen on the homeowners, and Agena has been a great help to them. And, you know, they went through the zoning board of appeals, and now they're here before you to get the Chapter 219 approval.
Very good.
See, there was some fines levied, because they did quite an extensive amount of improvements
Yeah, the
downstairs.
basement-
3 bedrooms, 2
Yeah,
bathrooms.
I do believe the prior owners paid the permit fee for the basement, but it was all under one permit application, so it couldn't have been issued without getting the proper approvals for the exterior work.
Okay.
So I guess you got a discount.
She did a lot of work, and these clients have been through a lot of years, and then they finally reached out to me, desperate for help, and, you know, they actually did their own zoning board, because I didn't have time to help them, and they did a fantastic job. I just did this and the NJ letter for the DEC, and whatever they need through the building department and help, you know, to get this up to code, to make it safe, I, of course, will
We're
help
gonna try
them.
to help them out?
Absolutely.
That's why I'm here.
Great. All right.
Yeah, I do have a resolution on today for, you know, to classify secra and approve the Chapter 219, subject to any comments that the town's consulting engineer might have.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Have a
much
good
for your
night.
time. Have a lovely holiday.
Thank
too.
you as
Thank you.
well. Okay, let's move on to Dish 5G at Sound Shore Road with Matt Charters.
Okay. This is an application for wireless communication co-location off of Sound Shore Road. If the board remembers, back in April, we had an application on the same tower for Verizon Wireless. They did some equipment swaps. This is on the Wells property, just south of the tank farm in Northville. You can kind of see it from Sound Avenue. It's a 98-foot tall monopole. AT&T and Verizon both have equipment on the ground. In terms of secra for this application, it's unlisted. I'm recommending that the planning board assumes lead agency and issues a neg deck. I've attached an aerial of the property that's on page 2 of this report. Quite a substantial set of plans that you guys got. We're working on getting these applicants to submit 11 by 17s. I know it's a lot of paper. In terms of the proposed work, Dish is proposing to co-locate 3 panel antennas on the tower, 6 RRUs, and an over voltage protection device and some wiring, and they're going to do a little ground level work too in a 5 by 7 lease area. In terms of reports that we received, we did get an RF analysis report, a structural analysis report, and a mount analysis report. In terms of the RF report, it's well below the limits that are permissible.
Is there a
by the FCC.
generator?
A generator? I don't believe there's one on site. They're not proposing one. If they were going to do one, they'd have to come to this board for approval.
I thought there might be there, right?
There
I
might
would
be
think
one
there would be one.
there. Yeah, that's generally
You
what's
got all those
happening.
carriers on there, you
Yeah.
got a generator there,
Yeah,
believe me.
most of them have been adding them over the last, 5 years, so if there's not one there already, I'm sure there'll be one soon. Structural analysis report didn't recommend anything for the tower. In terms of the mount analysis, they did get what's called a conditional passing report. For what I can gather, their plans show that there's a Dish wireless mount. It didn't specify the type of mount, so when they did the analysis, they said, oh, if you use this mount, that's fine. So I have a condition of approval that says, you have to comply with all conditions of the mount analysis report and submit a revised set of plans prior to the issue of a building permit. In terms of planning commission, these don't get referred due to the size. And then recommendations, I do have a conditional approval on with a neg deck for this application to revise the plans as I just said, and then a post-construction analysis report, which we asked for on all of these by engineer.
Very good. Do you have any more of your questions?
Nope. Anybody else?
You covered them all. Wonderful. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Next up, we have HK Ventures with Greg Bergman.
Thank you, Planning Board. So this is a discussion of the HK Ventures site plan application pertaining to the secret review of the project. As you will recall, the Planning Board on October 20th of 2022 required the preparation of a supplemental draft environmental impact statement to capture the traffic impacts from 3 new projects which were not captured in the original final environmental impact statement. Those were specifically JPD Calverton, U-Haul of Calverton, and the Riverhead Logistics Center. The applicant did submit a draft supplemental EIS to the Planning Department on November 21st. We referred that to the Planning Board's traffic consulting engineer, L.K. McLean. We did receive a response from him, which was forwarded to the Planning Board. The gist of his review was that the trip generation calculations, as well as the distribution of trips from those 3 projects on the roadway network appeared reasonable. The memo concludes that the projects are not anticipated to have a significant impact on the Middle Country Road Edwards Avenue intersection, which was the specific intersection that was spelled out in the resolution requiring the supplemental draft. So we do have, he did basically say that the traffic study was adequate for the purposes of accepting the draft as adequate and commencing the public review and distribution to involved agencies.
When would the public have a chance to view the document?
So once the board accepts the draft supplemental EIS as adequate, once the board does that, it'll get posted on the website. Secret does spell out a minimum public comment period of 30 days. We will also post it in the DEC's environmental news bulletin as required under SECRA. So once the board accepts the resolution and deems it adequate, it'll be posted on the website and made available for public consumption.
And that's on the agenda for tonight?
Correct.
Okay. Anybody with any questions? No. All right, thank you. Greg, are you on the next one too?
Yep.
Okay. Next we'll move on to Long Island Cauliflower Association with Greg Brookman again.
All right, so we do have representatives from the application here. We have Mr. Israel and Mr. Israel, if the board has any questions, if they'd like to come up. Oh, and the Mr. Israel. All right, so this is a continued discussion about the site plan application seeking to redevelop the property on the northwest corner of Mill Road and Old Country Road. Since the board last spoke about this at a meeting, there's been some revisions to the plans. They have eliminated on that building number 2, which was previously the Dunkin' Donuts and Jimmy John's restaurant with the drive-through window on either side of the building. They have eliminated that Jimmy John's use, so now it is just a standalone, I believe a 1,400 roughly square foot Dunkin' Donuts. It does have one drive-through window for the Dunkin' Donuts use, so that adequately addresses that kind of never-ending loop of traffic circulation around the building. And they have also included the roadwork plans for the Suffolk County right-of-way. The main reason why we're here to discuss this with the board now is to move along the application pertaining to the Riverhead Water District's plans for it. Since this application's been submitted, the plans have shown the water service to be taken off of the existing main within Mill Road towards the north end of the property. The Riverhead Water District, and I did provide a memo which kind of detailed their conversations, some of the negotiations that they've been having. The Water District did reject that service off of Mill Road. They said that there wasn't adequate infrastructure to come off of Mill Road, so the applicant has agreed to provide a 10-inch water service which would be tapped off the water main in Old Country Road. There's a couple of unique factors with this application. Now, the county is requiring a 15-foot dedication along the Old Country Road frontage. So bringing the water service in from Old Country Road, based on that dedication, the county's not going to have an RPZ hot box enclosure within that dedication area. It does leave a very limited area to locate the RPZ enclosure. So on the set of plans that I distributed to the board, I just kind of hand marked on it the likely location, which would be kind of that triangular area where the Chick-fil-A drive-through exits back out into the parking lot. I did speak with the eventual builder of the site to get details as to what that RPZ enclosure would look like, size, dimensions, et cetera. And I was told that it would likely resemble, based on the size of the service, it would resemble the RPZ enclosure that was installed at the Hobby Lobby site. On the staff report, figures 1 and 2, I did go out and take pictures of it. Basically a big stainless steel box, approximately 6 feet tall, probably like 8 feet wide. So we're here to kind of get some feedback from the board, one, to see if they're amenable to the location, and then we would have to discuss, obviously, screening, because it's obviously not the most desirable location to have a, nice, beautiful landscape site and then put an RPZ enclosure, but, based on the negotiations and kind of the moving pieces with the water district, there's not really many other options.
I don't have a problem with the location, as long as it's properly landscaped. It's hidden behind some bushes or whatever, it'll be fine.
What's that dotted line that's in front of it? Is that the right
That's
of way you
that's
just
the line
spoke
of
about?
dedication.
Dedication, okay.
And how many parking spots will be affected by this?
It would not affect any parking spots.
They don't have to remove them.
I mean, there could, there would be, if that's a little tight, if it doesn't leave enough room for landscaping, there may be some options, because there is a bank of, I think, like 7 or 8 stalls along 58. I know some of the drainage structures are located in that area. I don't know how feasible it would be to shift some of those pools around and potentially locate it there. But working within the parameters of the existing plan, so that's kind of the location where it would be logically put.
We'll have ample protection around that area with, this way no one can run into it.
I would assume there would be some kind of bollards behind,
Exactly,
Yeah, it's in an area where it's the one way out of the drive-through, so all direction of cars is alongside of it, not towards it.
Well, that's not what I'm concerned about. We've got people running into the local post office, okay, to make a drive-in window through the door.
Bollards are easy, so just another.
Better safe than sorry.
Did the applicant, I know we can talk with the other issues tonight, did the applicant consider waterless landscaping on the western boundary? We talked about that a couple times.
So there is no public water on the north side of Route 58. It's on the south side. Water was brought across to Commerce Drive. The issue that we have here is, this is a very tight site plan, and this is very late in our application. We've gone through a couple of years in front of you to try to coordinate everything that has to happen on this site plan with sewer, water, and the like. Doug has probably sent in multiple drafts to the health department that they do not want sewer and water to cross anywhere on this site. The sewer easement that leads out to Commerce Drive is extremely tight because we have drainage structures within the property that they're coming across, and we've actually moved the sewer easement so that it goes along the property line to miss all of that. And obviously, they're now going through, where it was just going through the driveway, which would have been a simple, easy thing. We're now ripping up curbs, landscaping, light poles, and everything else to make way for that sewer, and obviously that's going to be put back in like kind and place. It's virtually impossible to get a water line through that because of the drainage structures and the sewer main. And it would then have to be a public project going across two private properties, which, God save the Queen, okay? So, we thought to this point till about a month ago that we had worked out the issue of this 8-inch main being acceptable, but Frank wants that 10-inch main to come across Route 58. We're basically servicing, Chick-fil-A is 5,000 square feet, Dunkin' Donuts is 1,500 square feet, The other one is proposed at 2,500, and the back one's proposed at, 6,000. I think legally, only 2 of the structures need fire suppression. We went back and forth with the fire marshal. We added another fire hydrant on site. The water department was worried about water pressure if there was a fire there. So at one time, we agreed to bring over a public hydrant on the other side of Mill Road. But in the end, Frank has insisted on bringing this main, so what are we to do? I always thought our rule was never to have a structure in front along 58. I know that the planning board over the years has fought that. So we never even thought of proposing it from the start. So we are completely done with Chick-fil-A. Everybody corporately has approved everything and the like. They have more parking than they are required by law, but they have the amount of spaces that they require for their lease. So if for some reason you want me to eliminate something, I have to go back through their entire corporate structure even to get rid of a parking space. So there's this one notch there. It is on the correct side of the sewer mains, so we don't cross them. And I have not even brought this up to Chick-fil-A. We're basically going to say this is a requirement of yours, and hopefully it will get through their corporate governance, because again, we're putting a structure in the front of their building, okay?
Just following
With
up
now
on
with
what-
plantings and
following up on
everything
what you
else.
said with that there's excess parking.
Chick-fil-A.
That they're providing more parking than necessary based on their requirements.
Chick-fil-A.
Is that what you said? Is that what you said?
Chick-fil-A has more
Yeah.
parking than required by,
Right, okay.
by our code.
Question being, instead of having this little spot here for the cross connection, can you move it into, take a parking spot, or 2 parking spots away from it, and put it into the parking lot? Then it's back further off the road.
He's gotta go back
Yeah,
and forth.
it's impossible to ask. You can ask. All they can do is say no.
He's saying that you have to lose a space or 2 here, but you explain.
I mean, you've got those half a dozen spots that are just facing this 58 now. Take 1 or 2 away, just move the device into that area.
If I could just jump in here for a second, I don't think we're gonna need to do that anyway. The meter pit is gonna be underground, and, with the grades there, we might actually be able to save on that. I'm just finding out about this this week, so we haven't really looked at this yet. But, we're gonna be above the road here a little bit, so we may be able to lower this, so the view from this side is at least, but there's plenty of room there to fit an LPG box. And you might come in over here or something, just swap it to improve the meter pit underground. It's a big meter pit, it's a big meter.
Okay.
But I don't anticipate a problem with having to use those spaces.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
My only thought was just to move it a little further away from 58.
I think all Richard was saying was that we can afford to lose a space in terms of the code, but to lose a space in terms of what deal has been made between One on Cauliflower and Chick-fil-A would be a pretty drawn-out process to get that change to happen with them.
My concern is that you just said several times what a tight site plan this is. And it really is. I'm very concerned with the building in the rear. I'd like to see Chick-fil-A come, I think that it's a great thing. This area is so dense right now with the way that this is drawn out. And you just said it yourself, that it's tight. And to hear that said and it being recognized, it's something that I can't unhear. And I'm afraid that there's going to be too much congestion there.
Talking about the site plan, the landscaping?
And just right down to that we have to have extra, parking stalls that the town isn't even requiring. I don't understand why Chick-fil-A is saying that there has to be so much more parking. What is the reason for that?
The reason is these, many restaurants, whether it be a Red Lobster or the like, always have larger parking requirements because they want to make sure that any customer that comes has a place to park, that it always looks like there's always generous parking. Will they ever use all their parking? I'd have to go through a whole theory with them, and it really depends on how successful they are. You know, we've seen with this plan how they've addressed the drive-through issue, which was in question all over Long Island, that, you know, people were, you know, especially during the pandemic. They've created something, and we've gone back and forth with the planning board and gotten everything to where it should be a pleasant experience to come here. So,
Just following up on what Joanne said, is it possible not to build all the parking spaces, even though there are spaces there for it?
so again, we're bringing up issues in the 11th, 12th hour of this. This has been in front of your board for 2 years. It has gone through quite a bit of motion to get where we are today.
Yes, I
You
understand
know,
that.
so,
But it's like now we're bringing something else, not only the Chick-fil-A to the front of the property, but now we're also bringing this big metal structure that we're trying to place into
I'm not
an
bringing it.
already, I know you're not, but that is where it has to go in order for it to come.
This is something at the 11th hour, and I don't want to start griping, because, again, we're in front of you guys a lot. We try to plan everything precisely the way we understand everybody wants it. If you can remember back when we did Riverhead Commons, I had proposed even something nicer than what was here in the side of a complex, and I was told, no way, no how. So now I'm being told by the water company that this must be done. And I was like, we'll do whatever you say. But I don't know who's first in line anymore.
I think in the context of what Richard was talking about earlier with how it's a tight site, I believe he was referring to how we're being asked to put an RPZ in the front, and how we already knew from the last few years dealing with, you know, previous members of the board mostly, but how the RPZ in the front of the property was not desirable, so that's why we always never had it there. So it being moved to the front, you know, we didn't plan on it being there, so now having to put it there makes it, it's a tight spot where that's going. I think the rest of the site is completely adequate for what we're doing here. It meets all the, you know, code requirements. And typically, you know, when you talk about restaurants in Riverhead, the code is
One per three
seats. You know, every restaurant needs more than 1 per 3 seats. So, you know, in every restaurant that we do, we always provide more, wind up providing more parking. So it meets the code, obviously. Sometimes we'll do something like land bank parking to at least satisfy both ends of the stick. But geometrically, you know, how the flow of the site is, this is a pretty long and well thought out site. I don't think it's tight in that respect. I think he was just talking about, you know, the frontage on Route
Just the front,
58
yeah.
is narrow
Okay.
here. We're deep, right? So to have this come off 58, there's only one place it can come in at this hour, like you said.
Okay.
Now it's coming.
Thank you for
My
explaining
concern-
that.
I'm sorry.
If we knew it was
My
coming in
concern-
earlier, we might have, you know, this might have been a little looser up here to handle that,
Yeah,
but
well,
it's
I
not gonna
came
be
in
that big.
earlier, quite a bit earlier, on the neighboring property between the homes and the northern portion. We were supposed to meet, the three of us, that never happened. I looked on the latest plan, and I think it's inadequate buffer between the neighbors and the site.
The 50-foot buffer, you mean?
What's that?
The 50, this buffer?
50-foot
Yeah, the
buffer,
north border against the,
and we're putting up a 6-foot fence along that we're replacing the fence on the rear property line with a 6-foot slatted fence as required by your code.
The existing, and all the existing woods, you know, the trees are gonna remain. That existing buffer is not gonna be disturbed. They do have the 6-foot chain link fence with privacy slats. There is a retaining wall in front of the parking stalls, and they are providing an evergreen buffer on top of that retaining wall to screen the parking, so you're not
Yeah,
gonna
I
get,
saw it.
you're not gonna get headlights into the residential.
How many feet is the wall?
51 feet.
How tall is the wall?
Yeah.
I
I
think
believe
it's 51
it's
feet
about
between the wall.
2 to 3 feet.
No, the distance here is 51 feet, I think.
Yeah, it's, no, I mean,
Sure. I
it's,
looked
yeah,
at that.
it's top wall, 36, 34, so it is between 2 to 3
2
feet.
to 3 feet. It really is just there so that we didn't have to disturb, 10 feet past the parking area to grade it out. We just stopped it right at the very edge of the parking, so we can maintain a 50-foot.
I mean, such a massive project, it doesn't seem to me that some more landscaping up in there or buffering kind of affect this size project.
It's just a question of, everybody would like to preserve the trees that are there. If you'd like me to tear down, the
Nobody wants you to
the
tear down
oaks
trees.
and everything else,
But
we
there's
can
no,
do that.
there's not a green leaf on it for 6 months out of the year.
The evergreens will be green
Yeah.
6 months out of the year, and
Question
That's
there,
all I have.
between buildings, proposed buildings 3 and 4, there's a parking area.
Yep.
Is that there for a purpose, or do you need that for extra parking? There's nothing there.
this parking area that's south, in order to meet the requirements of the 200 seats, this is the parking area that was necessary. We originally had the access road further to the south, but DPW and them all decided that it was needed that the access road line up with the access road of Home Depot on that northern thing. So we actually had to move the road, which split the parking lot.
So this would be the parking lot for the building number 4, is that right?
Correct.
Well, the 6,400 square foot restaurant shows 200 indoor seats, 30 outside, so it's 230 seats. At 1 per 3, it would require 77 stalls. So that you have 77 stalls in the main parking lot. I do agree. I mean, this 29 parking stalls, I mean, the site itself is overparked. I mean, I'm not getting into the Chick-fil-A requirements.
It's overparked, yeah, it's overparked.
I mean,
based
total
on the code.
required is 149, they're providing 251. So I mean, there's no way that 29 stall lot would be required. I mean, they could lose almost 100 stalls throughout the site for town code, not getting into corporate agreements and that. So I mean, that 29 stalls could easily be eliminated, and that would buy up an additional, I mean, that's 65 feet.
Yeah, but again, getting back into the code and what's required for a restaurant, what is actually required for a restaurant, they're two different things. And in case in point would be one of the first restaurants, like a franchise restaurant that we did was Applebee's. And if you know the Applebee's site, there's an Applebee's building and then there's a pad to the east that has,
Yeah.
I think, a
Vision Works.
mobile homes, right. And that was a two-phase project where they built the Applebee's and built a pad and all the parking, okay? And when that opened, there wasn't enough parking on that whole site just for Applebee's, and the other building wasn't built yet. So that's a good example of a site plan where we barely made the code by a parking stall or two, and there's not enough parking there for Applebee's, and now that those other buildings are there, there's not enough, they're parking probably over by, Bob's and making it happen, so, maybe it's not the best time to bring it, but the code needs to be, changed in terms of seats.
That sounds like you could lose those 29 parking spaces and nothing would be hurt.
And that will know
You
when
wouldn't have
we
to pave
find
it,
the
you wouldn't have
tenant
to
for
pave
the
it,
north
you
side.
could keep it green, keep more open space.
I think if you did that, you wouldn't be able to get a tenant in that restaurant space, but there's not enough parking for it.
A long walk.
And the other thing we have to remember, just the people that work in a restaurant based on that. So in a sit-down restaurant, there's more staff and help and the like. So, and that was shown to us through Applebee's, that yes, we kept to the code, you got your exact amount, and all of a sudden they had 15 employees, and that used up a third of the parking spaces that were utilized for the patrons.
I think there was a 99-seat restaurant, so it was 33 stalls,
So,
and half of them were for employees.
and I don't know the future, if we land up having a restaurant that comes in and says, we only have 120 seats, I think everybody would be happy not to do that improvement, land bank it, and let it be free.
Well, it's not gonna be built right away anyway until you have a tenant.
Correct. You know, so. You know, part of the discussion we've been having is, do we need to build the entire road that leads to that back at this point? And, again, through discussions with the planning board, it was thought that, okay, it would be best to finish, as you see in the phasing plan, the perimeter, so that it's settled in, it's done, no one will touch it again, and then we would, you know, as we found new tenancies, in most cases, we're gonna come back in front of you, even though that pad is there, their building may be a different shape, this or that. It's gonna come before you again when we go to, you know, the third and the fourth pad.
All right, I don't have anything else.
So, were you just saying that for the time being, you will not build that entrance?
No, the entrance off of Mill Road, both
You have two
driveways off of Mill
entrances.
Road are part of phase
If
one.
you're not gonna be building 3 and 4, why
If you look
bother
at
having
the
the
phasing
entrance?
plan, 3, 5, and 4 will not be built out. There may have to be some drainage structures that will supply the road and deal with the water off of the open space, but we will not be building the parking lots at this point for 3, 5, and 4. And if you take a look, that parking lot that you're discussing is its own phase.
Yeah,
So we can have that discussion.
no, I just asked, are you going to build that entrance as well?
Yes.
When you
Right now,
start?
it's proposed that way, that we're gonna improve all of Mill Road. We're going to improve the back so that that exists. And we're gonna balance the site. We're gonna move the dirt around, get it level to where it needs to be, and probably it's gonna get seeded, until we find tenants.
And the landscaping will go in at the same time as in
The
the beginning, so
landscaping
that
of the
it,
perimeter,
okay, and that includes the area,
the buffer.
the buffer area,
Yeah.
okay. That way it has a chance to grow, thicken up, okay. All right, thank you.
So just so we're leaving off, they need to provide some type of, let's see details of the actual RPZ enclosure unit, landscaping plans and screening methods for that RPZ.
Correct,
Okay, great.
thank you. Thanks, Frank. We're going to-
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to public comments on the resolutions. If anyone has anything that they would like to come up and comment about for the resolutions only, come on up.
Good evening, my name is Barbara Bloss, I live in Jamesport. You may want to consider on Resolution 114, to amend it to reflect the fact that HK Ventures is in the Industrial C zoning use district, not in the Industrial A zoning use district.
Thank you.
It's in Industrial C. It says Industrial C in your discussion item, but in the second whereas, it says Industrial A.
Noted.
Says she here.
No, on the agenda, it does. Ms. Blas is correct. The agenda, there was an error. The resolution does read A, so we can vote on it as amended to reflect Industrial C.
Okay, anyone else? All right, let's move on to the resolutions.
I'll move resolution number 112 for 2 Cliff Road, chapter 219. So moved.
Second?
Vote, please. Bear?
Yes.
Nenaro?
Aye.
Nacesky?
Aye.
Woski, yes.
I'll move resolution 113, Dish 5G at Sound Shore Road, classifying action pursuant to secret, and assume lead agency and issue a negative declaration, and grant administrative site plan approval. So moved.
Second.
Vote, please. Bear?
Yes.
Nenaro?
Aye.
Nacesky?
Aye.
Woski, yes.
I'll move 114, which accepts the supplemental draft environmental impact statement, or supplemental draft environmental impact statement pursuant and allows for public comment.
Second?
Vote, please. Bear?
Yes.
Nenaro?
Aye.
Nacesky?
Aye.
Woski, yes. Okay, do we have anybody that would like to come up for public comments on all matters? No? Okay. Oh, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Barbara Blas again. Just a comment. I know you have the absolute discretion to amend an agenda up until the very last minute, but I was wondering if you wouldn't consider, especially when you're amending the day of the meeting and you're adding a resolution, if you would at least indicate on your agenda that it's amended, just as a courtesy to the public. It used to be done that way,
Right,
and
I agree with you. Yeah.
it would be helpful to
Yeah,
continue
thank
that
you.
process. Thank you very much.
Makes sense.
If that works for us.
Done.
Thank you, Barbara.
Sorry.
Good evening, my name is Jacqueline O'Donnell. I'm a resident of Foxwood Village on Middle Road. And I would just like to thank the planning board for putting the recommendation for the moratorium to the town board. I thank you for listening to the residents of Calverton, and I wish you all happy holidays. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming out in the cold to tell us that.
Good evening, Talk Turchin, Greater Calverton Civic Association President. So some of our residents are here today, even though we don't need to impress upon you the need, and I'm so glad that they did. I'd like to thank you as well for the 5-0 vote of a very good, well-written, detailed opinion that you have communicated to our town board. I'm not sure where that stands right now with the town board because of the outcome of the work session that they held and came out with 2 resolutions. And I don't know what communication can happen from this board in addition to what you've already given to help them on their way to deciding. So I just put that out there to you tonight, if there's anything that you can do to help them resolve the bifurcation. It needs to be a singular document in good planning and also in good legislation. So if there's anything that you think that is appropriate, I would appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We have the meeting minutes from November 3rd, 2022.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Other business, correspondences. Our next meeting is Thursday, December 15th, 2022 at 3 p.m.
Yeah. Make a motion to adjourn the meeting, so moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a nice weekend, everybody.